Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order for October 6, 2025. Mr. Franciat, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini. Mr. Young.
Present.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleland McGrath. Ms. Moulton. Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Young.
Mr. Walters.
In the absence of the mayor and the mayor pro tem, I move that we authorize Councilmember Young to chair the meeting tonight.
Second.
Do we need a vote on that, Mr. Franciat? All right. Well, great. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Young,
Mr. Walters.
I understand that Ms. Moulton is out of town and Mr. Fantini is sick, so I move to excuse both of their absences.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Opposed? Okay, thank you. As you can probably tell, I'm a little rusty. It's been a bit, but what I really appreciate is that we have fellow council members here that will ensure that we follow the rule of law and order. So thank you very much, my fellow council members. At this time, we are going to move to announcements and committee reports. I'll start out with the mayor's announcement. Anacortes Fire Department open house will be October 12th between noon and 3 o'clock p.m. It's free and open to the public. Family-friendly activities and demonstrations. Special guests include Community Emergency Response Team, Anacortes Ham Radio Association, and the Anacortes Police Department. Sunday, October 12th, 12 to 3 o'clock p.m., Fire Station 1, which is at 1016 13th Street. The next announcement is Community Emergency Response Team. Community training starts October 13th. CERT is offering free community emergency response training in Anacortes beginning October 13th. Planning, prevention, and skills necessary to survive a disaster while helping others. Registration link is available on our website or Skagit County Emergency Department website. Again, registration link is available on our website or Skagit County Emergency Department's website. Next announcement, Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum is October 14th. The Chamber will host a candidate forum on Tuesday, October 14th in Council Chambers. It's from 5 o'clock to 5:30 is the candidate meet and greet. 5:30 to 8 o'clock is the forum, which includes questions and answers. Admission is free, but registration is requested. Please visit Chamber website for additional details or registration. Next announcement is the Downtown Streetscapes Plan Open House, and that's on October 15th. In partnership with First 40 Feet Design, the city is hosting a community open house to launch the Downtown Streetscapes Plan to enhance Commercial Avenue and connecting streets. That's Wednesday, October 15th, 5:30 p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m., City Hall, Council Chambers. Any other announcements? Mr. Walters?
The Public Works Committee did not meet this afternoon because the Public Works Director, Administrator, and City Engineer were all out of the office. Ms. Moulton was out of town, so we did not meet. We will reconvene in 2 weeks. I did want to note that there is a Volunteers of America groundbreaking ceremony for their new housing development in Burlington on October 16th, so that's a Thursday. It's at 2:30. It's on Rio Vista Avenue in Burlington. They do request an RSVP. If anybody needs that link, I'll send it to you. But We had a meeting of the North Star Housing Task Force today, and one of the things that we talked about was the need to show support for any housing development in any of our 4 cities, because housing development in Burlington that is affordable for people who live in Anacortes probably helps benefit some number of people that are currently living in Anacortes. I mean, we want housing development in Anacortes that supports those whose community, whose family, whose job is here in Anacortes, but for some other subset of people, they will benefit from new housing developments affordable in Mount Vernon or in Burlington. Certainly the Martha's Place, Mount Vernon development, which was helped by the county and by Mount Vernon funding, has helped Anacortes, even though we didn't contribute anything to that. So anyway, so that's one of the ones that is coming up soon, October 16th, and so if anybody wants the link, I can send that on. And then November 18th, a full month later, the North Star Housing Task Force is planning another housing forum at the Mount Vernon Library Commons building from 6 to 8 p.m. And that one will feature Bill Krieger, who is a retired architect, talking about middle housing and what that can look like and how that can be integrated into neighborhoods. So that's November 18th, 6 to 8 p.m. And we haven't done any publicity around that yet because that date got locked in, I think, maybe today. But clear your calendars if you're interested in that and save a spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Are there any other announcements from the? Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to move to the next item on our agenda, which is public comment. I see we have one person registered for public comment, and it's concerning the property tax ordinance. Do you want to speak now? Or, okay, all right, please come forward and, yes, please come forward and give your name and what city you live in.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Shua Mu, Anacortes. Good evening, City Council members. I've sent you a letter this morning, and there are a few other points I would like to add. I'm here to express a serious concern about the draft property tax ordinance being considered. As written, the ordinance states that the city requires an increase in property tax revenue in addition to that resulting from new construction improvements to property and any increase in value of state-assessed property. In simple terms, this means the city can raise the property tax levy by 1% without considering the additional tax revenue that will automatically be provided by higher property valuations set by the county. These valuation-driven increases are not just technical bookkeeping, they are real costs borne by citizens. For 4 years now, the city has cited flat revenue projections to justify annual levy increases. However, to the residents, the tax burden and the cost were not a flat line. Our property tax has gone up more than 25% in the past 4 years. This is before you even add the new hospital and the proposed MPD pool levies, rising utility fees and higher costs on everything. So the burden on residents triple from automatic valuation increase, additional levy increase, and the rising cost of living from inflation. Unfortunately, households across the city don't have a money tree growing in the backyard. So I urge the council to be transparent about how increased property valuations will affect total property tax collections, not just the 1% levy increase. Clearly report to the public the combined effect of new construction, market revaluation, and the levy increases before voting on this ordinance. Lastly, please consider whether raising the levy again this year is consistent with the financial realities many households are facing, especially since property valuations have already increased significantly. Citizens deserve full disclosure about how much their tax burden will rise, not just the portion labeled as levy increase. Anything less undermines public trust. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any others in the audience or online? No? All right, well, we're going to move forward to the consent agenda, items A, B, C, D, and E. Council?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
I move approval of consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a move by Mr. McDougall, a second by Ms. Hubick. Mr. Franciat, would you take the roll? Is that right? Yep.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now we're going to move on to item 6 on our agenda, the public hearings. And first up is the budget revenue sources, and discussion about that is our fabulous accountant and money manager.
Thank you, Mr. Young, members of the council and members of the audience. The city is required as part of the budget process to hold a public hearing on revenue sources, including if a 1% property tax increase is being considered. So I have a few slides to go through to show how we developed revenues, the things we considered in developing our revenue projections for the 2026 budget. And then Mr. Young would ask you to open the public hearing, and I would recommend that we close the public hearing tonight as well. It's an item that's statutorily required to be done, but I do want to point out to council and members of the community that we take public comment at all of our budget meetings on any aspects of the budget. So if anybody at any time during the budget process wants to comment or ask questions about revenues or any other parts of the budget, we're happy to take those questions or comments.
Just to be clear, Mr. Hoagland, after you go through the slides, we'll open it up for public comment, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So to begin with, these are the statutes that drive the public hearing process, RCW 35A 33135. That's why we're meeting here tonight, no later than the first Monday in October. Council is to be provided with an estimate of revenues. And then 8555-120 addresses the possible increase in property tax. And it is noted here that in our revenue projections, we do include a 1% property tax increase in that revenue stream. This is an overview of all of our revenue types by fund. If you look on the second line here is taxes at 18 million, and within that 18 million would be our property tax levy. Looking across the different columns, you can see where there are different tax revenues identified. So the general fund, the parks fund, and these are combined. We have the Parks and Rec Fund, Parks Construction Fund, a variety of funds that make up the Parks Department, street maintenance and street construction funds, and other funds are those other funds that don't really stand on their own, and collectively we report on those, but within that there are also a variety of tax revenues identified. So our total revenue projections down at the very bottom corner on the right-hand side for the 2026 draft at this point is $111,588,000. So I wanted to talk about property tax a little bit in more detail. This is our largest tax revenue stream at currently at 8.5 million. Identified here. This is a complicated revenue stream, the way property taxes are calculated in Washington state. So to begin with, the total assessments of the properties within the city limits is identified at 6.5 million. That's that number is given to us by the county assessor. And we break that down into thousands at 6.5 million. Our property tax levy, our current levy is 8.5 million. And when you divide those into each other, you get $1.31, 1.3119. So that's our millage, and that millage, that $1.31, is the amount that is assessed against the property assessments to collect the taxes, and it's on a per thousand basis. So it's a $1.31 per thousand in assessed values. So I use an example here of a house that has an assessment of $750,000. That would have 750 mills at $1.31 per mill, works out to $983.94. So that would be the levy for the city for the year, $983.94. And then a 1% increase on that is $9.84. So if the city takes the 1% property tax increase, that would equate to a roughly $9.84 per year increase for the city levy. And that's the city portion of the levy only. $9.84 for the year at 82 cents a month.
Mr. Young.
Mr. Walters?
So this is an important point. We can't explain it enough, really, because it's not well understood. The millage rate is not what we are controlling. We're controlling for the budgeted amount. So our 6.5 or $8.5 million worth of property tax levy, that's the amount that's going to go up by 1%, and then the millage rate will float to get that amount of money coming in.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that is a very important point. So the bullets down here at the bottom of the page indicate that 1%, that existing levy is what drives the 1%. So it's 1% of the 8.5 million. So when we go to the county and ask for the property tax levy increase, we would be asking for the additional $85,000. And then the new construction is added to that. And new construction added to the tax rolls is added to that amount as well. So it's when we make our levy request to the county, they will give us the lesser of what is available or what we ask for. So if we were to ask for the 1% property tax levy but not ask for any additional new construction, we would get the 8.5 million plus the 85,000. We would not get the additional tax added to the tax roll, or additional assessments added to the tax rolls. So we make it, we don't know what that's going to be at the time. We make an estimate based on what we're seeing in our activity, making an estimate of 55,000. So that's what our request will be to the county, is 1% if council approves, plus an additional 55,000 in estimated new construction.
And the question that I get all the time is, my property taxes are going up, you know, surely the city is getting more money from me. And the fact of the matter is, the answer is no. The city gets the same amount of money, with only the exception of the 1% of the new construction, every year, irrespective of whether your property goes up or down. Cumulatively, the same amount of money comes in. And that's why we take the 1% every year, because that $8.5 million is eroded by what is expected to be 3% inflation. So when we take the 1%, we will still end up netting out a loss of 2% of that total property tax revenue. And the property tax revenue pays for fire and police and so many services that people depend on, everything but the utilities, really.
Yeah.
So there is no real alternative to taking the 1%. The 1% is a $10 a month impact on a $750,000 home, $10 a year impact on a $750,000 home. And it is, if you look at, so we put this chart together a couple of years ago before the public safety levy lid lift. You look, prior 20 years, we always took the 1% and we got the new construction. And the purchasing power of the property tax levy still went down in real dollars. We lose ground even with the 1% because inflation has generally been 1% or higher, and lately has been quite a bit more than that. And even with the new construction, it doesn't keep up.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Walters. Ms.
Yep, all
Mr.
very
Hoagland.
good points.
Okay.
This next chart I put together, I just pulled off of the county assessor's website, the picture of what a full property tax assessment, what a full property tax bill looks like for a Anacortes resident. So, Medic 1, the Fidalgo Park and Rec District, the county. We broke this out into a pie chart over on the side here. I think it's interesting to look at that, at the taxes we pay through our property tax levy locally. The majority of that still goes to the state. They get 30% of that. The city of Anacortes gets 17%. The school district gets 23%, and the county gets 12%. Hospital, 8%. So, and then a variety of other junior taxing districts. So looking at this bill, total taxes of $5,660. The portion of that the city of Anacortes controls $983. Sales tax, this is one of our most important revenue streams. It's not our largest. It's second behind in dollar-wise behind property tax, but this is one we rely on for growth because it does tend to, during at least the good economic times, it grows at a faster pace than property tax levy. That's not been the case the last few years. I know council is aware of this. We, in 2022, our sales tax balance peaked at about $6 million. We were down about 1.3% in 23, about 5% in 24, and then 25, we were up 4.1% over the prior year. Or I'm sorry, this is looking at the current year pace. We'd be up 4.1% compared to 2024. So what we did is looked at historical trends, the collections based on historical trends, and through August collections, we projected that we would. Let me restate that. So to set the 2026 the 2026 sales tax budget, we took our August receipts, projected that out to year end based on historical collections, and added a 2.5% inflator to that. And that would put the sales tax balance at $5.9 million. So we used 2.5% because that's what roughly the growth rate that we've been seeing so far. Sales tax has not been it's not been consistently up every month during this year, but it's been up in the more recent months. So it was down earlier in the year, and it seems to have come back in the more recent months. So it's not a big increase over what we're currently projecting, but I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation.
Mr. Young.
Mr. Walters?
So that 2.5%, is that what you're seeing as an annual growth rate over previous year?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And just to be clear, Mr. Hoagland, this is about you doing projections based upon historical data that you've got, but also at the same time, your conservative look at how we're doing as a city in revenue generation.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me, utility tax. So the city collects utility tax on private utilities, which is natural gas, electricity, cable TV, and telephone service, also on the city utilities. What we've seen the past 2 years in the private utility tax is growth in that utility tax that we were told is told from the utility providers was based on kind of a one-time increase in rates due to clean energy initiatives that drove the cost of energy up, and the utility tax reflected that increase. We don't expect to see that again next year, so we took for those private utilities, receipts that we had collected through July, and again, based on historical collections, projected those out through the end of the year, and that's what we used as our 2026 budget. So we're projecting out to collect just over 2.5 million through the end of the year, and that's what we're using for the 2026 budget for utility tax on private utilities. On the city utilities, very similar. We took our July receipts. The CPI, we're expecting to see it around 3%. We incorporated that increase into that projection for the 2026 utility tax on the city utilities. Just a little more detail on private utility tax. You can see 2022 and 23 up over the prior years, and then 24 roughly steady. Public utility tax, we had a dip in 2023 and then back up in 2024. We talked about this a little bit at the retreat. I wanted to bring this up again at this time. We have a draft budget in place that we have not yet started to review with the mayor and departments. So we have the department requests in place. We have our revenue projections in place, but we have not started the process of evaluating those requests with the mayor. But at this time, against those unvetted department requests, we do have a significant gap between revenues and expenditures. I just wanted to bring this up as a kind of a reminder, bring this back up to the forefront of council. If the city council were to put a utility tax increase in place of 2% on the city's water, sewer, and storm utilities, that 2% would generate roughly $612,000 in additional utility tax revenue that would go directly into the general fund. This would work out to roughly $2.50 per month impact to a typical ratepayer.
Mr. Walters?
Are you showing that revenue as being generated by residential customers or by all of our utility customers, including the wholesale customers?
So this would be, this would not include it would not include the water purveyors in the water utility. So it would include the industrial customers, but not the other wholesale customers that buy water from the city and then in turn resell that water. So the other cities, the PUD, the Sandwich Nation, all buy water from us, but in turn resell it. So this estimate does not include those customers. It includes our residential, commercial, and industrial customers. The industrial customers being the refineries.
Okay, so the wholesale customers, that's the distinction, right? Is it water purveyors?
Yes, that's
Meaning
right.
the wholesale customers.
Correct.
They currently don't pay that utility tax, and you're not, well, I don't even know if you're proposing this at this point, but you're not showing that.
That's correct. It's not included in this proposal. My recollection, we did the analysis on that, and I don't have that number written down. I apologize. My recollection is that a 2% increase on the wholesale customers would generate like an additional $30,000, something in that neighborhood. It's not a significant amount of money compared to looking at our industrial base and in-city base.
Mr.
Okay.
Young?
Mr. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Kind of along those same lines, my understanding is basically the ratepayers of City of Anacortes consume about 12% of the water, the total water supply that is, I guess, produced and sold. The industrial customers, the refineries, they're closer to like 60%, right?
I want to say
50,
closer to 70%.
70, okay.
Yeah.
Is that 612K, is that basically a, like, 80% industrial customers and 20% us?
Yeah, the magnitude would be something like
Roughly
that.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so, and that explains why, basically, if we were to add the 2% to, like, Oak Harbor and La Conner Water, it would actually not be $600,000. It would be like a much smaller fraction, because that 600 is really largely being, like, paid for, or, you know, if it were to come to pass, would largely be paid for by the refineries.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Hoagland, I know we're talking about a 2% increase, just as a number that we're using in this discussion. Are we wedded to 2%? Or, you know, even for, let's say, our wholesale customers?
Right, no, I think, my understanding is utility tax is the one tax that council can put into play, is councilmanic, so city council can authorize the level of that utility tax, and I do not believe that there's a ceiling on that.
Thank you.
Okay, real estate excise tax, another one of our large revenue streams, and we rely on REIT for our public works projects. We talked about this a little bit during the CFP review. This is kind of a projection of where we're at now. So this 2025 balance, we're expecting to spend about $1.05 million through the end of 2025. That would leave us a balance about 3.7. And then looking forward, these two balances, it doesn't include any expenditures. It's just showing what that balance would look like based on a 5% REIT growth year after year. And 5% annual increase in REIT, based on what we're seeing in REIT right now, I don't think that's a crazy assumption, but it might at the same time be a generous assumption. It's hard to say what the real estate market is going to do, but at this point, 5% next year I'm not completely uncomfortable with, but after that, and we monitor this, you know, from month to month, so we can make adjustments on this, but that's what we have in place for the CFP projections. If we overlay the expenditure requests from the CFP on top of that, there's a lot of red pretty quickly. But again, we look at this every year. We adjust our CFP annually, and we make adjustments to accommodate those revenue projections. I wanted to talk a little.
Mr. Walters?
So, I mean, we've been having this conversation over the last number of weeks. I just think it's worth just putting it out on the table that REIT revenue isn't increasing at the rate that it has historically. Sales tax revenue hasn't been increasing at the rate that it has historically. It seems to me that some of those REIT-funded facilities and other projects just do not get done in the next couple of years until those revenue sources get stronger. I'm very much in favor of leaving them in the CFP, but pushing them out into further out years, unless they are really, really essential. Because the alternative is just, what? Come up with new tax revenue sources like utility tax, which don't even generate the amount of money that we need to fund those things.
Yeah, no, it's quite true. I totally agree. When we come back with the operating budget, we talked about this during the CFP process. And when we come back with the operating budget, you'll see the REIT allocations. The initial budget won't have full REIT allocations to all of the projects that were requested for the 2026 budget by the departments. There was something over 1.2, I don't remember the exact number now, in facilities, and we came to an agreement of an 800,000 allocation for facilities. The Transportation Department, it was something significantly higher than that, and we agreed to a $1.5 million allocation. The idea being that we would monitor those projects and revenue streams, pretty consistently, and essentially do a quarterly true-up, and then at the end of those quarters, if there was a reason to allocate additional resources for other projects that were on the list, then we could come back to council for a budget amendment and go from there.
Yeah, and we talked about that. I'm really not sure if I'm on board with that approach. I think we would benefit from maybe a written description of exactly what you're talking about there. But also, I do want to drive home the point that the needs, assumedly, are not going away, although maybe some of the project costs can be squeezed to achieve it with less money. But if a project cannot be afforded, I don't want it to drop out of the CFB. I still want to know that that need is there so that we don't, if revenue streams do improve, we don't squander that money, that money still needs to go to, especially mission-critical projects. So that level of transparency, even if we don't have the money near term, I think will be important to retain in the document. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Yep.
Okay. Well, one of the things about it, if you go back to your prior slide, just the fact of showing how much, how much money we're needing in order to move forward those things, I think is a clear indication that there's, we need to make some adjustments. And although that, I do think that there are a number of citizens that believe our city is run very well, but in that we have lots of money to be able to spread around. The truth is we really don't. We squeeze those dollars as best as we can to make the most efficient decision that we can. And I think that given the deficits that's coming up, that will be a bigger discussion as you bring that forward for us. And as we look at the capital facilities plan to determine what's highest on the list of our priorities, and as Mr. Walters said, not wanting to take some of those important things out, but just not having the budget for them at this point, and that's just the reality of the discussion I think we'll have as we move forward. Thank you.
So just kind of briefly, shared revenues from the state. The MRSC has a calculator that has shown to be pretty accurate over the years. These are revenues that are shared on a per capita basis by the state: liquor profits, excise tax, criminal justice programs. So the liquor profits estimated at 134, liquor excise tax 128,000. Motor vehicle fuel tax, this is for road maintenance. This gets receipted directly into the road maintenance fund, and then a few other smaller revenue streams. The other thing I wanted to bring up tonight before we end the revenue discussion, when we talked about the CFP, we showed some analysis that illustrated both the storm sewer fund and the wastewater fund were projecting to be in a financially difficult position as we move into 2026. So what this shows, we did an analysis of what a $5 per month increase to the storm system would generate, and that would generate about $410,000 in additional revenues in 2026, and then that would build on itself, throughout the planning horizon there. And sewer rate, we calculated a 6% increase, and that would generate roughly the same, about $540,000 throughout the planning horizon. So both, and that 6% works out to about $5 a month as well. So there'll be, before these types of increases are put into place, there'll have to be some additional discussion and council action, but I wanted to kind of keep this on the forefront of what we're talking about with council during the budget season.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
So that is a 6% increase on current rates.
That's correct.
So that is something like a 3 percentage point increase over what it would increase anyway, because like pre-programmed, we have the CPI increase, right?
Yes, that's correct. And
So if we take no action, it's still going to increase by somewhere close to 3%?
So in both of these views, the estimated services revenue row already shows the 3% for CPI that we will apply
does?
regardless.
Okay.
So the
So this is on top.
6% and the $5 is on top, and that's why you see a consistent number on the bottom instead of a growing change, because the baseline assumes the 3% is already there.
Does it assume the 3% is there every year?
Yes,
Okay. So
it does.
But inflation will not be 3% every year.
Correct, but in all of our budgeting assumptions and all of our revenue models right now, we've got a 3% CPI, just because we've seen things just below and just above 3% for the last
Sure.
couple of years.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, and then we actually show operating costs growing at 4%, and that's really the things just need to get balanced out, because things are just costing more right now.
Okay. So the total revenue, or the total rate increase then would be somewhere around 9%
Correct,
for the first year?
yes.
Well, for every, and 3% after that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you. So, council, I think that's all I have. There are other questions from council? Otherwise,
Nope.
Mr. Young, the public hearing.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing part and see if there's any questions out. There's a couple of hands that we have. Am I right on that? Yes. Okay, we open it up for the public, and I saw one hand come up. You're welcome to come up and state your name and the city and pose your question, comment.
Pat Gardner, Anacortes. Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. A lot of this is kind of Greek to me. It's a two-part question. Utility tax increase into the general fund. Doesn't the utility, all that bottom line of utilities, go into the different departments of the utility? Or does the tax go into general fund? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to find out. Can that be answered, or is that, does the utility tax go into the general, and the rest of the utility, our bill, goes into the different departments consist in the utility?
I see Mr. Hoagland.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
and then I have another part.
Thank you.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters.
I think we recently had this discussion about protocol, and the conclusion, I thought, was that we should have the commenter complete their comment, and then we will circle back with answers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the other question is, looking at this, the charts, I see a $5 a month, approximately $5 a month increase for the storm drain per household, plus a $5 increase for sewer. So that's approximately another $10 a month on our bill. Am I reading that correct? Okay, that's all I have. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Hoagland.
The utility tax question. So the utility tax, it's actually a tax on the utility. It may be a fine point, but the utilities are considered separate entities from the city itself. It's a city utility, but it's a separate operating entity. So the utility actually collects that tax from the customer, but the city does tax the utility that amount, so the utility pays the general fund. So it does end up in the general fund, but it goes to the utility. The utility is taxed by the general fund and pays the general fund. So it is a revenue that ends up in the general fund. And the illustration of the increases, that's exactly right. What I showed earlier would be a $5 increase on both, roughly $5 each on both storm and sewer. So it would be a total of $10 increase to the existing utility bill.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Hoagland.
Young.
Mr. Walters?
If I could follow up on that a little bit, just for clarification, I think the question really revolves around the $20 a month charge you get for water coming from your tap. That $20 goes into the water fund, right? And can be spent nowhere else.
Yes.
But the tax on the $20, the 6% or whatever it ends up being, that tax revenue goes into the general fund.
Yes.
And doesn't have to be spent on water.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarity. Any other questions? Anybody online? No? Oh, there's another hand. Please come forward.
So just follow up on the question. I heard 6%. You
Excuse me, would you state your name?
Sure.
And- yeah.
Shua Mu, Anacortes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I heard previously Mr. Hoagland presentation talking about 6% increase on the storm or on the sewer. On the sewer. So 60%, if it's $5, we're talking about what's the average rate. That's the average rate, equate to $5, right? Yeah, so it is not everybody gonna get a $5 increase, depending on your current bill. Is that correct? That's correct. Right. So I want to clarify on that. So it's not necessarily $5. Secondly, I have not seen a year-to-year actual city levy, the property tax levy increase is 1%. That's what I'm still confused about, how the assessed value not increasing. So I actually hand-entered from Anacortes city website every single year from 2015 to 2025, actual levy and the average. Let's look at 2025. It was $8.564 million. And back in 2015 was $4.642 million. And then have each individuals. It's anywhere year-to-year increase is from 2% to 49%. For the 10 years, we average 8% increase. So it is not quite 1% increase, so I need some help here to explain. Thank you.
So looking at that historical trend from 2015 through 2024, 2025, there was the Proposition 1 levy lid lift that was publicly voted tax increase in 2023, and that was effective for the 2024 property tax levy. So 24 was the first year that was effective, and that added an additional 36 cents per thousand to the millage. So that was, I don't remember exact numbers. It was in the neighborhood of 3 million, maybe a little more than that, in additional property tax levy. And that was specifically to accommodate an additional 13 public safety employees, 8 firefighter paramedics, and 5 police officers with associated equipment and and gear. And I mean, it's a fair point. We, as a city council can control 1% of the increase to that property tax levy. There is additional assessments that get added to the tax rolls. But there are also a variety of things that affect individual taxpayers, and those are really hard to get your arms around. We've had the assessor come in from the county on a couple of occasions to try and explain that. And depending on where you live within the city, your assessment might go up faster than somebody else's assessment. If properties get taken off the tax rolls from governments or other entities buying those properties, that existing levy requirement or that existing property tax doesn't go away. It gets respread to the existing taxpayers. So there's a variety of things that affect that. It's a complicated revenue stream and a complicated tax that everybody has to accommodate.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. I'm sure that this discussion about that will continue when the assessor comes back again, I'm sure. But I think, it's a complicated thing. But I do think that you've done a reasonable job of explaining it as best as you can in the languages that you use for that. Mr. Walters, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, so 2024 certainly was an outlier because we had a voted measure. You need to look at time periods prior to 2024 to see the councilmatic 1% impact and compared to inflation. And of course, the other important component of that, and it really shows itself over 2022 to 2024, is something close to 20% inflation over 3 years, which really eats away at the purchasing power of a dollar. And so in inflation-adjusted figures, the property tax levy has gone down quite a bit. The other important minor point is we don't really control the property tax rate. We control the property tax total levy, the total amount of money that comes in. And that control is only extended to that 1% increase plus the new construction. The rate changes based on your property tax values. So if your property assessment goes up, you very well may pay more, but only if everybody else's doesn't go up at the same rate. Because if everybody's property assessments went up at the same rate, at the same proportion, then everybody's tax would stay the same. And so this gets complicated quickly, and it'd be great if there were some state entity with a really nice interactive website that could show you all the levers and show the effects of various changes. But the fact of the matter is our property tax levy does not generate more money other than that 1% and the new construction from year to year. And inflation eats it away. If we were not allowed to take the 1%, and if we did not have sales tax, we would be just careening towards bankruptcy. And actually, because we have had inflation much higher than 1% in the last several years, again, 20% cumulatively over 3 years, I think it works out to, and it's on track to be quite a bit more again this year. And because sales tax hasn't been booming, you see the city of Bellingham has a projected deficit. Whatcom County has a projected deficit. City of Mount Vernon has a projected deficit. Anacortes School District has a projected deficit. And it's just, it is the simple physics of inflation and not being able to raise revenue at the same rate as inflation. This only affects mostly our general fund, because in the utilities we're not so constrained on the revenue side. Of course, we don't want to raise utility rates willy-nilly, but the structural problem with the state law limitation on 1% means that eventually you just don't have the money to pay for the things that you used to be able to pay for at the same levels of service. So your levels of service have got to go down over time, which is not what people expect or want. So it is a structural problem that is not getting better as inflation goes up and continues. And we've got to, at the state level, make some changes here. One of those changes could be to make it a little clearer how this operates, because there's so much focus on the rate, on the millage all the time, but that's not really the thing that's under our control. I get the impression that that is a consequence of how the property tax system used to work and then how it was changed by the initiatives and various legislative fixes along the way. But we're not making this up, and neither are all those other cities and jurisdictions I mentioned. It's kind of a race to the bottom here until we can figure out how to have a fairer system.
But to your point, it's been duly noted and understood. The taxes, raising taxes is a difficult choice. Using those dollars as efficiently as possible is a whole nother choice. And so that's some of the things that will come before council and the city to make possibly some tough choices as to how we go forward from here. And so I do understand the point that you're making. I'm sure council does. And as we go forward into this discussion, I'm sure it will be vigorous, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Mr. Hoagland, is there anything else you want to mention on this, or you want to move forward?
No,
That was it? So I can close the public hearing at this point? At this time, I'll close the public hearing on this and move to the next item on the agenda. All right. Next item is item 7B, Resolution 3186, Purchasing Policy Update. It's a discussion with possible action. Ms. Sweatdam.
Thank you, Councilmember Young, other members of council, and members of the audience. So I am here to introduce Tiffany Matson, who's going to speak about the updates to the purchasing policy. So just a couple of points before I turn it over to Tiffany. So your packet includes a clean version of the proposed resolution and also a red line version. Most of the changes in the red line version that you see are precipitated by changes in state law. So we're recommending that council adopt the proposed changes into the resolution. But I'm excited to introduce Tiffany Matson tonight. She's the contract specialist. She's been in that role with the city since 2017, and she doesn't get to come very often and talk with council, so I just wanted to kind of mention a couple of points in her background. When Tiffany started with the city, we were really just building the contracts program out to what it is. And I believe in 2016, we had like 40-some contracts that were processed centrally. Last year, we had 442. So this is a program that's grown both in terms of its scope, but also in terms of the attention to detail and ensuring that the city standards are the highest and comply with all state law requirements. So Tiffany's really made herself an expert on contracting and procurement. We've also added grants management to her position in the last year, and so she's really working with other city departments to build that level of structure to make sure that we're dealing with grants at that same professional level that we do with contracts. So we all really appreciate Tiffany's expertise at the city. Not only is she recognized by us here, but she's also recognized by her peers. She is a member of the National Institute of Government Purchasing for the Washington State chapter and was asked last year to be the Legislative Liaison Committee chairperson. So she takes her expertise and shares it with other similar professionals in her field, and also is important in advocating for changes in state law that make government contracting fairer and more efficient. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Tiffany.
Thank you very much. Thank you, council members and members of the public. I'm happy to present our proposed updates to the city's purchasing policy. The majority of the updates are minor edits and wordsmithing, with most of the large edits reflecting recent changes in the state laws. So the goal of our city's purchasing policy is to provide information to staff regarding the laws that must be followed for purchasing goods and hiring contractors, consultants, and vendors, as well as provide a manual that staff finds easy to navigate and useful when learning and following our internal procedures. So most of the large edits are, actually all of the large edits are in the Public Works section of the manual. And for procurement and contracting, Public Works means all work, construction, alteration, repair, or improvement other than ordinary maintenance. And so it applies to all the departments throughout the city, and it's basically anytime someone wants to hire someone that's going to use tools is usually a public work. So the first update is to Section 7F regarding the small works roster. The city is allowed to use this alternative solicitation process for public work projects that are $350,000 or less. And starting in July of 2024, the rules were changed, which removed an option we had to solicit quotes from 3 to 5 contractors, and it added a new direct contracting option for contracts that are under $150,000. So this is a lot of text, but I'll go over it. So the law now allows for 2 options for using the small works roster. Either you can send a solicitation to everyone on the generated roster for a project, or for $150,000 or less, you can use direct contracting. But to use direct contracting, it requires the local government to authorize the option, establish a business utilization plan, establish direct contracting procedures, including specific rotation rules, and establish how contracts will be negotiated and award amounts determined. The rotation requirements are very strict, and there's no expiration for the rotation between the small businesses on the list. So the use of direct contracting also triggers several new reporting requirements. Due to the administrative staff bandwidth that would require to monitor the rotation of contractors, as well as the multiple reporting requirements, plus the fact that our contracting system is not currently set up for these tracking and monitoring requirements, city staff recommends that council not authorize the use of direct contracting, and that the city's procedure for using the small works roster will be to send the solicitation to the entire list of contractors on a roster list. For Section 7L, we have added language to reflect an update to the law that for projects over $1 million, when a bidder is submitting their bid, they must identify their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical contractors, subcontractors, and at the time they must be licensed. It's a minor change, but before they didn't have to be licensed at the time of bid submittal. Section 7N is a new section to the, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I got that. I think I might have skipped one. Oh, no, sorry. It is a new section to our policy, but is not a new law. And so this is just identifying the ability we have to award to the second lowest bidder if certain conditions are met, including the city council issuing a written finding against the lowest bidder, and also that the second lowest bidder is within 5% of the lowest bid. Section 7O has been updated to reflect the apprenticeship utilization requirements for large public work projects. This law went into effect in July of 2024, and the added language in the section details for staff the exact requirements and what the city is responsible for. The state statute outlines 4 specific scenarios that warrant adjustments to the apprentice utilization requirements, but it also allows for local governments to approve other criteria. So we have proposed language for 5 other scenarios to be approved by City Council through this policy update that will qualify as the other criteria. Section 7S is a new section that was added in order to give guidance to staff on the procedures for making changes to public work contracts that have been engineered. This language details who can issue and approve field orders, change orders, and contract modifications on applicable contracts and the processes for staff to follow. And that concludes the major updates.
Thank you. Council?
Mr. Young,
Mr. Walters?
could you go back to that slide about the 5 other scenarios. I just wanted to be able to jump to that section 12O.
It's at the very end of the apprenticeship section of 7O.
Okay. So how did we come up with those?
Those are actually
criteria?
recommended by MRSC as standard other criteria that may apply that's pretty reasonable.
So are they just basically direct from MRSC's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. This is a discussion action item.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters.
I just wanted to also extend appreciation for the work that Ms. Mattson and Ms. Swetnam have done over the last many years now. When I came to the city, our contract process was charitably defined as a process. I think we are all aware that we are still digging out from some of the contracts that were executed prior to the improvements that you have made over the last decade or so. But I also wanted to highlight, there's only so much you can do with the procurement process, but even with the changes to the process, procurement is still kind of a bottleneck in a lot of government agencies. And there's a paper that came out a couple of years ago about state capacity and infrastructure costs. And it found that going from the 25th to the 75th percentile of engineer quality of engineering, of creating the documents that you then go out to bid with, is associated with a 14% reduction in project level costs. And so that, I think, is just one data point that we should keep in mind as we're thinking about, where we allocate resources. 12th and Commercial, I think of that as a particularly problematic project with respect to the engineering that was done for the design of the various incarnations of that project. And here we've got some data that actually shows that's true, maybe kind of across the board. So I think that's just a useful data point that we might consider in the future as we talk about where we put resources into projects. It's not just all in procurement process, it's also in the substantive inputs into procurement. And so I would move, these changes all look fine and straightforward, and I appreciate the constant updates to keep us compliant with the law as the law changes. So I would move that we approve the resolution as presented to update the purchasing policy.
Second.
All right, so we've had a motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Ms. Hubick. Mr. Franciac?
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
If I might add one more thing to that, seeing as I'm having both roles, and normally, I say my piece either way, but, I also wanted to echo the sentiment of Mr. Walters for Ms. Swetnam and also the hard work you guys have put in. Sometimes it's almost like unsung heroes that come and help our city stay vibrant, stay out of trouble, and allow us to help be the place that we are, that people love about us. Sure, there's always work to do, but I just really want you to know how much I appreciate you personally. And as a member of council, I'm thankful that we have people like you that are working so hard for the benefit of our city. Mr. Hoagland, of course, all of you, I really do appreciate the staff that we have. And in the 8 years that I've been on council, I have learned a tremendous amount and a great appreciation for how hard I know you put your heart into making this city what it is and the city that we love. So, I didn't want to miss my shot at that. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. All right, we're moving on to I believe the last item on our agenda, and Mr. Hoagland, I think you're back at it again.
Thank you, Mr. Young. So the ordinance presented here is, would authorize an interfund loan between the water fund and the wastewater fund. So we talked a little bit ago about the financial hardship that the wastewater fund may be looking at as we move into the next budget year. One of the projects on their CFP that's critical to the wastewater fund is the combined sewer overflow project that has an estimated cost of $4.5 million. What this ordinance would do is authorize an interfund loan from the water fund, which does have sufficient cash to be able to loan this money on a shorter term basis. This would be on a 5-year basis, to the sewer fund, which doesn't have the financial capacity to take that entire project on at this point. Also identified, the BARS manual requires us, the BARS manual is published by the State Auditor's Office, provides guidance on governmental accounting for us, requires that interest be charged on interfund loans. What I identified as an interest rate would be 3.61%. That's what a 5-year treasury is currently paying, so that would be the equivalent of what that money could earn for the water fund if it wasn't put into use for the CSO project. So this is just first read at this point. I could try to answer any questions you might have, but if the questions are around the CSO project itself, I would likely be unprepared for that. But questions around the, around the loan itself, I'd be happy to try and answer. And we can bring this back at the next council meeting as well for second read with additional staff.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. Council, are there any comments, questions? Mr. Walters?
I do have questions about the project itself, so I guess we'll defer those to next week or whenever this is brought back for its second read. But some of those questions are around where the project is at this point. I mean, assumedly it's not designed yet. So what kind of money are we going to need for design? And would we, if you could scroll down a little bit, so I don't have to manage navigating all my tabs here. So assumedly it's not designed yet, so the design is going to take some amount of time, and you don't need all $4.5 million up front, and maybe $4.5 million isn't the total cost of the project after it's all designed. So should we take this more incrementally?
Yeah, so my understanding is the design is nearly complete.
Okay, so that's an important point then.
Yeah, and this is the engineering estimate at this point is 4.5. So this is what we're expecting to come back from bids.
So have we bid it out?
No.
No. So could we execute this when we have bid it out?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, the money in the water fund's not going away, but then we would know precisely how much we need. Or do we want to add like an up to $4.5 million line in this ordinance?
I mean, it's.
Or is that implied by section 1? Because it's an authorization?
Yeah, if that's a good question. I like that question. If the bid were to come in at $4 million, we would, then loan $4 million. If it were to come in at $4.6 million, then we would probably want to bid or loan, the $4.6 million. But to your first question, if we could authorize this afterwards, we certainly could. Once the bids come in, this could be authorized after the fact then for the exact amount.
Because if we haven't bid it out yet, I mean, we are more than a month away from figuring out what the actual cost is. So it doesn't seem like there's a rush.
Yeah, correct. No, that's a good point.
Unless we were not willing to do it at all.
The loan?
Right.
That would create a potential issue.
Well, and that's why I have some questions about the substantive nature of the project, precisely what it is, why we're doing it, why we didn't do it before. I understand that it wasn't FEMA eligible, otherwise maybe it would have been part of the prior outfall project, but having all that description, I think, would be useful.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? Ms. Hubert?
Thank you. Mr. McDougall and I were just trying to figure out where this actually was in the CFP, and if we are looking at the documentation from last week, it looks like the money starts getting distributed in '27. Is this more of a conversation for next week?
Yeah, so the, initially, we were going to start this project later, with the idea being that we would get a rate increase in place and be able to accumulate some of that cash to start the project in a couple of years. And then we came up with the idea of an interfund loan to get the cash up front and start it right away. So.
Okay, that's helpful. That's a good start. Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Walters?
Well, and I found it in the older CFP as starting in 2024, so last year, with 4.5 million. So and then 4.5 in 2025 as well, which is a lot more than what we're talking about. So I have many unanswered questions that are maybe the substantive kind for wastewater staff.
Okay.
Mr. Young?
Mr. McDougall?
Very quickly, if we were to move forward with this, the interest rate that basically one fund pays, or the sewer fund pays to the water fund, that's 3 point something, and that's based upon like an existing sort of standard rate out there, right?
Right. Yeah, that's based on the current 5-year treasury.
Current 5-year treasury?
Yeah.
Okay. So not knowing right now the level of urgency for this, but if that 5-year treasury rate goes down, say, like if we were to do this in a year or something like that, the interest we paid or one fund to another goes down, or potentially if the treasury rate goes up, and we delay, we have a higher internal interest rate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so that is a reason that I do like doing interfund loans when we can, to keep that interest earnings within the city.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, that was an interesting discussion.
And
Anything else?
I-
Mr. Walters?
Thank you. I would also be interested in knowing what grant opportunities may be out there. Because again, for the 3 million gallon tank on Whistle Lake Road, remember we got that drinking fund revolving loan. This isn't drinking water, but maybe there are other grant opportunities like that. This is a pollution reducing facility. If there's something out there that could help fund even a part of this, that would be a significant benefit both to the sewer fund and our sewer ratepayers and the water fund, which would have more cash available in it for
Right.
whatever project water comes up with next.
Yeah, fair. Yep.
And the one missing piece of data on here, I think, is how much money the water fund has and how this may or will not, which is also an acceptable answer, affect the projects that water wants to.
Yeah.
Do we happen to know that off the top?
I'm sorry, I don't have that off the
Okay,
top of my head. But yeah, I can get that to you for sure.
Okay.
Okay, unless there are any other, and that the intention is to bring this back on October 13th, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, are there any steps that I need to do up here tonight? Okay.
No, you're
Well,
good.
good. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoagland. Again, thank you for your patience, and also thank the team for trying to prepare me for tonight. I really appreciated the conversation and the meeting early this morning, and I'm thankful for that. It always reminded me how much work and preparation goes into trying to make our meetings look seamless and efficient. So I truly mean that. Thank you very much. All right, with all that being done, I call this meeting of October 6th City Council meeting to a close.